Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're diving into something huge, a really critical global challenge, type 2 diabetes.
Yeah.
And the numbers, honestly, they're startling. We're looking at over 537 million people living with diabetes right now. And that's projected to hit, what, over 600 million pretty soon?
It's staggering. And think about this. Back in 1980, it was around 50 million. This isn't just population increase. It's genuinely exponential growth. We need to pay attention.
Absolutely. But here's the thing, and this is why we're focusing on it today. There's actually a lot of hope here. Type 2 diabetes, for the most part, is largely preventable. And the path to prevention, really, it often lies right in your hands,
Hmm.
in your choices, your fork, your daily habits.
Yeah, and what's fascinating and sort of our mission for you listening isn't just to give you a list of what to do. You can find lists anywhere. We want to explore the why. Why do these strategies actually work? Understanding that mechanism, that's empowering. It lets you make informed choices for yourself.
That's such a crucial distinction because it feels like a paradox, doesn't it? I mean, modern medicine is incredible. We're amazing at fixing acute things, heart attacks, complex surgeries, intensive care. But when it comes to preventing these chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes, it feels like we're, well, lagging behind somehow.
We are. It's like we're better firefighters than we are fire preventors in a way. And this alarming rise often fuels this really pervasive myth. Oh, it's all genetic. People feel helpless. But if it were just genes, why this explosion now? Our genes haven't fundamentally changed in the last 100 years. And let's be clear, we're talking type 2 diabetes here. Type 1 is different. That's autoimmune, less than 4% of cases, not preventable in the same way. Type 2, though, deeply, deeply linked to lifestyle.
Yeah, that genetic myth is so powerful, and it connects to others people often believe, like myth number one. Diabetes is inevitable if it runs in your family. Sure, family history is a risk factor, no doubt, but it's definitely not a done deal. Your lifestyle choices, they have a massive say in whether that genetic tendency ever flips on. You can influence it.
Absolutely. Then there's myth number two. You only get diabetes if you eat too much sugar. Now, high sugar intake definitely plays a part, contributes to weight gain, increases risk, but it's not the only thing. Age, race, ethnicity, other dietary factors, activity levels, it's much more complex than just sugar.
Right. And maybe the most damaging one. Myth number three, there's nothing you can really do to prevent type 2 diabetes. And that's just flat out false. That's exactly what we want to show you today.
That feeling of powerlessness is so damaging, especially when you consider the hidden problem. For every single person diagnosed, there could be up to maybe 7 others walking around undiagnosed, often in that pre-diabetes stage.
Wow, 7.
Yeah, unknowingly heading down that path. But here's the flip side, the really good news. Because our habits often create this condition,
Hmm.
our habits can absolutely help us reverse it. We now talk about remission being possible. That's incredibly hopeful.
Okay, so let's get into the nuts and bolts then. What's actually happening inside the body?
Right. So, at its heart, diabetes is about having persistently high levels of glucose sugar in your blood. And insulin, that's the key hormone. Its job is basically to act like a ferry, transporting that glucose from our blood into your cells, like muscle and liver cells, to be used for energy or stored away.
Okay, simple enough.
Well, it starts simple, but think about the typical progression, how daily habits pile up. Let's say you often eat a lot of sugary foods or, refined carbs, white bread, pasta, potatoes, that kind of thing. Your blood glucose stays high for longer periods after meals. So your pancreas, which is still working fine at this stage, reacts by pumping out more insulin than usual to try and push that glucose into the cells. Compensatory hyperinsulinemia, it's called.
Okay, so it's working overtime already.
Exactly. And sometimes that extra insulin can even overshoot, causing temporary dips in blood sugar, hypoglycemia. But here's where it gets really interesting and maybe a bit insidious. Those constantly high insulin levels, they don't just manage glucose, they also act as a growth factor. And critically, they lead to leptin resistance.
Leptin.
Yeah.
That's a hormone that tells you you're full, right?
Precisely. So when your brain becomes resistant to leptin signals, you just don't feel as satisfied after eating. This leads to more cravings, eating more, and it just feeds the whole cycle.
Ah, okay. That makes sense why cravings can be so strong.
Mm-hmm. And over time, your body's cells, they start to get, well, deaf to insulin's message. That's insulin resistance. So the pancreas thinks, okay, I need to shout louder,
Mm.
and produces even more insulin trying to force the glucose in.
Like pushing harder on a door that's stuck.
Exactly like that. Now, your muscle and liver have storage space for glucose called glycogen. But when those stores are full because of constant excess, any extra glucose gets very efficiently converted into fat, and those high insulin levels,
Hmm.
they actively promote this fat storage. especially that visceral fat, the really problematic kind deep inside around your organs.
Right, the dangerous stuff.
Yeah. And this fat doesn't just sit there. It accumulates in the liver, leading to fatty liver disease in the muscles. And crucially, it can even accumulate in the pancreas itself. This damages the very cells that make insulin.
Oh, wow. So it attacks the source.
It does, and eventually that overworked fatty pancreas starts to burn out. It just can't keep up the high production. Insulin production drops. And that's the point when someone with type 2 might need to start injecting insulin, much like someone with type 1. It's the end stage of that process.
Gosh, it's quite a cascade, isn't it? How seemingly small choices can really snowball, like that example you mentioned from the sources. A glass of orange juice, a regular 350 milliliter glass. You think fruit, healthy, but it can pack, what, 15 to 17 teaspoons of sugar?
It's a huge amount. You'd never spoon that much sugar into a coffee, right? But because the fiber is gone in juice, it hits your system like a tidal wave. Massive glucose spike, massive insulin response. Eating a whole orange is completely different. The fiber slows everything down.
Right, okay, that's a very clear example.
Yeah.
So knowing all this, how do we actually take control? What's the game plan?
Well, we've pulled together a kind of 5-step game plan from the sources. But just before we jump into the steps, maybe a quick self-check is useful. First, yeah, acknowledge your genetics, they're there, but remember you can influence how they play out. Second, have a think about your life history. Past eating habits, activity, maybe infections, long-term meds like acid reflux pills, they all add up. And third, definitely get a proper medical checkup. Good blood test, maybe even a glucose curve test where they track your sugar after a sugary drink. It gives a really clear picture. Talk to your doctor about it.
Okay, understanding your starting point makes sense. So let's dive into those 5 strategies. What's step 1?
Step 1 is fundamental, what to eat and what not to eat. And it starts with those ultra-processed foods. We kind of know they're bad, but the sources really emphasize why. They're not just empty calories, they actively trigger inflammation, mess with your fullness signals. They basically pave the way for metabolic problems. So cutting way back on those is top priority.
Okay, ultra-processed out as much as possible. What else?
Be really mindful of added sugars. Things like honey, syrups, even those natural sugars like panela or agave. Save them for truly occasional treats, not everyday stuff. Definitely don't sweeten your tea or coffee daily. And, as we just said, fruit juices.
Yeah.
Especially orange and mandarin, just think of them as liquid sugar. Eat the whole fruit instead.
Got it. What about carbs like potatoes or rice?
Yeah, portion control is key for refined carbs like white potatoes, yuca, white rice. Maybe don't have them every single day or alternate them, smaller portions. The sources also flag limiting red and processed meats, beef, pork, bacon, sausages, deli meats. Some studies suggest just 85 grams a day could increase risk by 20%.
20%, wow.
And finally, watch the salt. Aim for about 6 grams a day max. Use herbs and spices. And moderate alcohol. It's often high in calories and hidden sugars, and it really messes with your metabolism.
Okay, so that's a fair bit to cut back on or limit. What should we be focusing on eating then?
Load up on vegetables. Think of them as your best carbohydrates. They're
Yep.
packed with fiber and nutrients.
Veggies first.
Okay. Eat whole fruits. Again, for that fiber benefit. For protein, aim for a good mix. Combine legumes, beans, lentils, chickpeas with lean animal proteins like eggs, fish, chicken, turkey. This ensures you get all the essential amino acids.
Right, variety is key.
And don't forget healthy fats. Things like olive oil, nuts, seeds, avocado, fatty fish like salmon or tuna. These aren't just good for you in a vague way. They're crucial for your cells, for hormone signaling. They directly impact how sensitive your body is to insulin.
Okay, so we know what to eat. Let's move to step 2. How to balance your meals. You called it the macronutrient power play. Sounds important.
It really is. It's about getting the right mix on your plate to control glucose and insulin. So protein is vital. Don't get too bogged down in grams per kilo necessarily, but think about making it a cornerstone. Aim for a decent serving, maybe palm-sized, at your main meals, especially breakfast and dinner. Protein keeps you full, supports muscle, helps manage blood sugar.
Protein first. Got it.
Second, fiber, non-negotiable. Aim for at least 30 grams a day, mostly from all those veggies and whole fruits we just talked about, and keep including those healthy fats we mentioned.
And why does this specific balance work so well?
Because it helps control those big blood glucose and insulin spikes after you eat. It also helps keep your liver and muscle glycogen stores from constantly overflowing, which means your body is less likely to need to convert excess glucose into fat. It optimizes your energy management system.
Okay, makes sense. And practically, how does that look on a plate?
The plate method is a great visual. Fill half your plate with non-starchy vegetables, greens, broccoli, peppers, you name it. Then 1/4 gets lean protein, And the final quarter, that's for your complex carbohydrates, maybe a small portion of brown rice, quinoa, sweet potato, that sort of thing.
Half veggies, quarter protein, quarter complex carbs. Easy to remember. Okay, so we've got the what and the how, but you mentioned earlier the when is also surprisingly powerful. Tell us about step 3, timing your meals.
Yeah, this taps into our natural body clock, our circadian rhythm. The basic idea is to establish a consistent eating window. Ideally, try to keep your eating within a 12-hour window, say 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., or maybe even shorter if it fits your life. And another tip is to maybe delay your first meal a bit, if you can. Give your body a longer overnight fast.
What does that fasting period actually do?
It gives your body a chance to burn through stored glucose. It gives your pancreas a break from constantly pumping out insulin. Reducing that constant demand is key. And once you're comfortable with a daily window, you could even explore physician-guided intermittent fasting for longer periods, like 16 or 18 hours, for potentially more benefits.
Right. But just to clarify, even if you shorten your eating window, you still need to get enough protein and healthy fats within that time, right?
Absolutely. Your protein and fat intake should stay pretty consistent. It's mainly the timing and perhaps adjusting carbs based on your activity level that changes.
Okay, great. Now for step 4,
Yeah,
physical activity and stress management. These always seem to go together.
they're deeply connected. And physical activity. Look, it's just non-negotiable for preventing diabetes. It's that important. Some experts even suggest that if you have enough healthy muscle mass, it's actually very difficult to become type 2 diabetic.
Wow. Why is muscle so protective?
Because muscle acts like a big storage tank for glucose. When you eat carbs, the glucose can go into your muscles to be stored or used instead of hanging around in your blood or getting turned into fat. More muscle means a bigger tank, better insulin sensitivity, and it also burns more calories even when you're resting.
Okay, so practical tips. What should people aim for?
Medline Plus suggests a good goal is at least 30 minutes of moderate activity, like brisk walking, most days of the week, say 5 days.
And it doesn't have to be all at once, right?
No, absolutely not. And something else really important, break up sitting time. If you have a desk job, just getting up and moving around for a few minutes every half hour or 45 minutes makes a difference.
Simple but effective.
Oh, yeah.
And the benefits go way beyond blood sugar. Yeah.
Oh, huge benefits. Better insulin sensitivity, less need for insulin, helps with remission, lowers blood pressure, cholesterol, helps manage weight, boosts energy, improves sleep. And don't forget mental health. Exercise releases endorphins, those happy hormones, and it's a great stress buster.
Definitely. Important safety note, though. Always best to check with your doctor before starting a new exercise plan, especially if you have existing issues like eye problems, heart disease, nerve damage, foot problems.
Crucial point. Some high-intensity stuff might need modification, and that brings us perfectly to the second half of this step, repair and stress management. These are just as critical. Honestly, you could have the perfect diet, exercise like a pro, but if you're chronically stressed and not getting enough good sleep, you're undermining your efforts.
How does stress impact things so directly?
Unmanaged stress, constant worry, anger, anxiety, it directly increases your blood glucose. It impairs how well your insulin works. It raises cortisol, your stress hormone. And high cortisol tells your body to store fat, especially belly fat, increases insulin resistance, fuels inflammation. It's a completely counterproductive cycle. You have to manage stress and prioritize sleep for repair.
It really highlights how interconnected everything is.
Yeah.
Okay, that leads us to the final step, step 5. Nurturing your microbiota and minimizing toxins. This sounds maybe a bit less obvious.
It might seem that way, but it's incredibly important. Think about this term, microbial endocrinology. It basically means that the trillions of bacteria and other microbes living in your gut have a profound impact on your hormones, including insulin.
Wow, okay, so our gut bugs influence our hormones.
Massively. If your gut microbiota is out of balance, maybe due to chronic stress, a poor diet low in fiber, using antacids all the time, taking lots of antibiotics without care, poor sleep, not eating fermented foods, this imbalance, called dysbiosis, can lead directly to chronic inflammation and insulin resistance, even if you're doing other things right.
So things like taking probiotics during and after antibiotics could be really important then.
Yes, very important to help restore balance.
And what about the minimizing toxins part? What kind of toxins are we talking about?
This broadens the picture a bit to our environment. We already mentioned ultra-processed foods, but the sources also point to things we encounter daily. Perfumes, scented air fresheners, creams with fragrance, plastics, especially when heated, even some household cleaners. Many of these contain chemicals that act as endocrine disruptors.
Meaning they mess with our hormones.
Exactly. They interfere with normal hormone production and signaling.
Hmm.
We're essentially living in what some call a diabetogenic environment, constantly exposed to things that subtly push our metabolism in the wrong direction, often without us even realizing it.
Gosh, that's a lot to think about.
It is, but the underlying message here is actually really powerful. Type 2 diabetes, in most cases, isn't something that just happens to you. It's largely created by the sum total of our life events, our exposures, our choices. And because we play such a central role in creating it, we absolutely have the power to change its course. We can reverse it.
And there's solid proof for that, right? Like that big study, the Diabetes Prevention Program.
Exactly. The DPP and its long-term follow-up, the DPPOS, really compelling results. They found that an intensive lifestyle intervention diet exercise support reduced the risk of developing diabetes by a whopping 58% over about 3 years.
58%, that's huge. More than the medication they tested.
Yeah.
Significantly more, initially. Metformin reduced risk by 31%. And even after 21 years, the lifestyle changes still showed a 24% reduction in diabetes cases. That translated to, on average, 3.5 extra years without diabetes compared to the control group. Lifestyle changes have lasting power.
That's incredible.
And there's more. If you have prediabetes that's stage before full diabetes and you manage to get your blood sugar back to normal levels, that alone is linked to a 56% lower risk of getting diabetes over the next 10 years. Reversing prediabetes is a massive win.
And it doesn't necessarily require extreme measures either, does it? What about weight loss?
Right. Even modest weight loss makes a huge difference. Losing just 5 to 10% of your body weight can cut your diabetes risk by up to 60%.
60% for a 5–10% loss.
Yes. Think about it this way. For every single kilogram, about 2.2 pounds you lose, your risk drops by roughly 16%. Every bit helps. This really underscores the link captured in the term diabesity. Our sources highlight that around 75% of type 2 diabetes risk is linked to obesity. And particularly that visceral fat we talked about, that seems to be a key starting point for insulin resistance. And this isn't just adults, it applies to childhood obesity too.
Right.
But the key takeaway is that these prevention strategies, they're accessible. This isn't about needing expensive programs or complicated plans. It's fundamentally about a shift in mindset, about taking ownership.
Okay, so let's try and bring this all together as we wrap up. We've seen type 2 diabetes is this massive, growing global issue, but crucially, it's largely preventable. We've unpacked the why, those complex internal processes like insulin surges, leptin resistance, the cells going deaf, fat storage, organ damage. And most importantly, we've walked through that 5-step game plan you can start using today. 1, being mindful of what you eat and don't eat. 2, balancing your meals with protein, fiber, and healthy fats. 3, thinking about when you eat, using that eating window. 4, making physical activity non-negotiable and managing stress and sleep. And 5, looking after your gut health and minimizing those environmental toxins.
And reflecting on all this, it really raises an important point, doesn't it? Our environment, yes, it might be diabetogenic in many ways. It pushes us towards unhealthy choices sometimes. But we still have significant control over so many factors within that environment. We aren't just passive victims of it.
That's a really empowering thought to end on. We have agency. So maybe the final thought for you listening is this. If type 2 diabetes is so strongly linked to our daily choices in our environment, what one small shift starting today will you make to begin reclaiming your health to help bend the curve on this epidemic, even just for yourself? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We really hope these insights give you some practical tools and maybe some renewed motivation to make a difference in your own life.